For years, one question has been getting harder to answer. Who is really the biggest P-pop group in the Philippines? On one side, you have SB19, the group that turned P-pop into an international conversation, built a powerful global fandom, and kept pushing Filipino music onto stages far beyond the Philippines. On the other side, you have BINI, the 8-member girl group that exploded into the mainstream, became one of the most recognizable acts in the country, and started taking that success overseas. And in 2026, this isn't just a fan debate anymore. The numbers are starting to tell a very interesting story, because depending on what you measure, SB19 can come out on top. But in other categories, BINI has a serious argument. So today, we're putting them head-to-head. Billboard, streaming, fan power, concerts, international reach, and most importantly, who actually has the stronger claim to the P-pop crown? Let's start with the charts. Round 1, Billboard. If we're looking at Billboard Philippines 2026 mid-year ranking, SB19 currently has the advantage. They ranked number 6 among the country's top artists for the first half of the year. BINI ranked number 9. And these weren't rankings based on one viral song. Billboard Philippines considered overall chart performance, streaming, sales, and cultural impact. That alone makes the comparison interesting, because SB19 wasn't simply competing against other P-pop groups. They were competing against the entire Filipino music industry. But BINI's position is still significant. They were one of only 2 P-pop groups to make that Billboard Philippines top 10. So the first point goes to SB19. SB19 1, BINI 0. But charts are only one part of the story, because when we look at fan power, things get much closer. Round 2, fan power. In July 2026, Billboard Philippines held a massive poll asking fans to choose their favorite P-pop releases of the first half of the year. More than 16.3 million votes were cast. And the final result was fascinating. SB19's Wackis at Simula took the number 1 position with more than 5.49 million votes. BINI's Signals finished at number 3 with more than 5.11 million votes. That's an enormous difference from what you might expect if you only looked at mainstream popularity. The gap between the 2 releases was only around 379,000 votes. And remember, those numbers came from a much larger P-pop voting pool. So while SB19 won the round, BINI was extremely close. This tells us something important. Both fandoms are powerful. But if we're judging measurable voting strength in this particular 2026 poll, SB19 gets the point. SB19 2, BINI 0. Now comes the category where the picture starts changing. Round 3, streaming. Streaming is where comparing artists becomes much more complicated. A Spotify monthly listener number changes every day. It doesn't tell us exactly how many dedicated fans an artist has. It doesn't tell us who sells more concert tickets. And it doesn't tell us which fandom is more loyal. But it can give us a snapshot of current listening reach. As of late August 2026, BINI had roughly 1.72 million monthly listeners on Spotify. SB19 had roughly 1.5 million. So on this particular metric, BINI currently has the advantage. And that matters, because BINI isn't simply benefiting from one viral moment. Their catalog continues to attract listeners while the group is simultaneously promoting the Signals era and touring internationally. So this round goes to BINI. SB19 2, BINI 1. And now the competition gets much more interesting, because streaming numbers can show who people are listening to. Concerts show who people are willing to spend money to see. Round 4, concert power. This is one of the hardest categories to compare fairly, because different tours use different venues, markets, ticketing structures, and numbers of shows. But both groups have already demonstrated serious demand. SB19 has built a history of major concerts and international touring, while BINI has also moved into larger venues and launched a global touring strategy. And in 2026, BINI's international expansion became impossible to ignore. The group launched its Signals era and continued a world tour with dates across North America, Europe, and Australia. SB19, meanwhile, has been pushing heavily into international markets as well, with appearances across the United States and Japan. So rather than pretending one group completely dominates the other, there's a more useful conclusion. SB19 has the stronger established reputation for international touring. BINI is showing that it can build a similar international infrastructure around a girl group audience. For this round, I'll give SB19 the point, but narrowly. SB19 3, BINI 1. And then came one of BINI's biggest international breakthroughs yet. Round 5, Global Reach. In April 2026, BINI made history at Coachella. They became the first all-Filipino group to perform at the festival. That's not just another overseas concert. Coachella is one of the world's most recognizable music festivals. And BINI followed that moment by receiving Billboard Philippines Global Force recognition at Billboard Women in Music. That combination gave BINI something extremely valuable: international visibility outside the normal P-pop ecosystem. But SB19's international story is also different and arguably more developed. In 2026, the group performed at Lollapalooza in Chicago and expanded its international promotional activity across the United States and Japan. They also appeared at Summer Sonic in Japan. And their international collaborations have continued to expand, including their collaboration with Chinese pop icon Jolin Tsai and their work with Japanese acts. So who wins? If the question is who had the biggest single international breakthrough in 2026, BINI has an extremely strong argument because of Coachella. If the question is who has built the broader international expansion over a longer period, SB19 has the advantage. So this round is a tie. SB19, 3.5, BINI, 1.5. And that's what makes this comparison difficult, because the two groups aren't following exactly the same path. Round 6, Chart History and Catalog. Now let's look at the bigger picture. Billboard Philippines' list of the highest charting P-pop songs shows just how dominant these two groups have become. SB19 has 12 entries on the list. BINI has 11. Together, they account for 23 of the 25 entries. Think about that. Two groups are responsible for almost the entire top tier of P-pop's Billboard chart history. SB19 has the slight advantage here, but BINI is right behind them. And that tells us something much bigger than which group gets 1 point. P-pop isn't being carried by one act anymore. These two groups are helping define the genre itself. Still, for the category, SB19 gets the point. SB19, 4.5, BINI, 1.5. But we're not done. Because popularity inside the Philippines and global recognition aren't exactly the same thing. Round 7, Cultural Impact. BINI's rise has been extraordinary. They've become one of the most recognizable girl groups in the Philippines, with songs that have crossed from the P-pop community into mainstream Filipino culture. Their music, personalities, choreography, and social media presence have helped make P-pop more visible to audiences that may never have considered themselves fans of idol groups. SB19's impact is different. They helped establish the idea that a Filipino group could build a career without simply copying the Korean model. Their songwriting, Filipino identity, self-produced material, and international ambitions helped give P-pop a distinct identity. So who wins? Honestly, neither. This category belongs to both. BINI represents the explosive mainstream power of modern Filipino girl group pop. SB19 represents the long-term push toward international recognition and artist-driven P-pop. Tie. SB19, 5. BINI, 2. And now we reach the final question. Not who had the better song, not who has the louder fandom, but who is better positioned for the future. Final round. Who has the stronger global future? SB19 currently has the advantage in international experience. They have spent years building an overseas audience, performing internationally, and creating collaborations outside the Philippines. BINI, however, may have the fastest-growing international story. Coachella changed the conversation. The global force recognition strengthened it. And their world tour is turning that attention into actual overseas performances. So we're looking at two completely different strategies. SB19 is building outward from an established international foundation. BINI is expanding outward from enormous mainstream momentum. And that makes predicting the final winner almost impossible. But based on the categories we've measured today, SB19 comes out ahead. The final score: SB19, 5 points. BINI, 2 points. With 2 tied categories. But that score doesn't mean SB19 is simply better than BINI. It means SB19 currently has the stronger case when we combine international experience, chart history, fan voting power, and global expansion. BINI's case is different. They currently have stronger Spotify monthly listener numbers, enormous domestic popularity, a rapidly expanding international audience, and one of the biggest breakthrough moments any Filipino group has achieved at Coachella. And here's the part that may matter most. This isn't really a battle between SB19 and BINI, because if these two groups continue growing at the same time, the real winner could be P-pop itself. SB19 proved that a Filipino group could dream beyond the local market. BINI proved that Filipino girl group pop could become a mainstream force and take that identity onto some of the world's biggest stages. One group is pushing the door open, the other is making the doorway bigger. And if both keep moving forward, the next question won't be, who is the biggest P-pop group? It will be, how big can P-pop actually become? And maybe that's the most exciting part of this entire story. Because SB19 and BINI aren't just competing for the title of P-pop's biggest group. They're competing against the limits of what Filipino artists can achieve on the global stage. One group has already built a powerful international foundation. The other is rapidly turning its own momentum into something global. And their story is far from over. So the real question isn't just SB19 or BINI. It's which one will take P-pop further? We'll find out in the next chapter. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Stage Wire.